Ufo and welcome to Ms. Jeanie Rebane. Thank you.
Wow, I'm very impressive, aren't I? Thank you so much for coming. I'm really thrilled to be here. Is that about the right level? Oh, yeah? Okay. So yeah, I'm really thrilled to be here because actually now I live in Swansea and that is integral to the talk and why I'm doing it now. I actually got in touch with Emily back in August, August. Was it August, September last year? And then I can't remember exactly. But it all stemmed from finding out about astro-cartography. Now, I'm already interested in astrology, and I'm sure a lot... How many of you are interested in it in a slightly deeper fashion, astrology? I mean, as in, not just your, your star signs in the newspaper. Well, you're in for a treat, aren't you? So, astro-cartography is astro from astrology, and cartography is map. Okay, so I'm going to use some props, and I've obviously got slides as well. So, who's heard of Pam Gregory? Pam Gregory? Yeah. So Pam Gregory is a master astrologer. She's actually got a master's degree in astrology. And I got these books a couple of years ago when I had to go back up to Yorkshire to look after my dad. And they just blew my mind. I've always been interested in astrology ever since I was a young teenager. And it was mind-blowing because she mentioned the first time about astro-cartography and how as a young woman she went to live in Toronto in Canada. And it was there in a yoga class that she met an astrologer who also happened to be an astro-cartographer, which is actually a stem of astrology. Okay, do you understand that? So it's like psychology. It's just a very small component, but integral to the talk tonight because we've all got our own personal, if you like, soul maps linked to astro-cartography, which is why I'm here in Swansea with you tonight. And I'm really thrilled to let you know because I'm actually evidential. So it's not something that you read in a book. I can actually prove my soul journey and why I ended up here tonight. So, really got no mic skills at all, haven't I? Okay, so I'm going to go to the next slide. So, oh, hello. So, in 2008, I was living in Barry and I'd just broken up with my husband. And I was needing a bit of help and I ended up going to see Moya O'Dwyer. I think you all know Moya O'Dwyer, a very good medium and lives in Swansea. And I saw her in Cowbridge. And she said to me at the time, I think you could do tarot, you should do tarot. And I had my own cards. And then a month later, I was in Inverness in Scotland, went to see another medium, and she told me the same thing, that I should become a tarot reader. And I was like, just tell me about my husband, am I doing the right thing? I wasn't really bothered about tarot cards at that point. And on the same weekend that I was visiting my friend in Inverness, I was on one of these angel workshops that my friend had organised. And I was told again by the angel lady, I hope you don't mind me saying this, but you should do tarot. So I'm thinking, whoa, 3 times in less than a month. So then I came back to Barry and I've been getting emails from the College of Psychic Studies for years, but I didn't know Swansea because I was living in Barry and it was a long way away. And on the day that I came back, there was an email from the Psychic Studies and it had got a tarot class starting, a beginner's tarot class starting on my birthday. And I thought, okay, I get it. I'm going to take the hint. So I came over to Swansea for the first time in 2009, did my tarot cards and the angel card reading, and then the year after, there was another class, and then the year after that, in 2010, there was an advanced class, and all the people who'd done the previous classes of tarot, and that is where I met one of my dearest friends. But he wasn't known to me at that time, so I'm probably the only person in Swansea who didn't actually know who he was. But he's here tonight. And he gave me a very interesting message, and some of it really made sense to me. He said to me, did I know of a ship in pub? And as Steve mentioned, I lived in Exeter as a teenager and lived in Devon many, many years ago. And I went, yeah, I used to live in Exeter and there was a ship pub. And then he said to me, do you live near Cumdunkeen Park? And I just thought it was a joke because it sounded very funny to me. And I said, well, I think you've made that word up for a start off. And I said, no, I don't live in Swansea, I live in Barry. And so that was a very interesting, and he also gave me some information about my grandparents. And it was a few weeks into the course that I found out that my new friend who'd given me this message, I didn't know him very well at all, was Steve Balsamo. And he gave me that message. So that is kind of my first, if you like, introduction to Swansea, okay? So let's go back forward in time now. I'm going to ask for a bit of audience participation. Are you ready for this? Can't see the, okay. Okay. Ask me on the count of 3 this question. Can you see it up here?
Yeah.
Oh, it's okay. It's not quite getting there, isn't it? So this is what you meant to say. Jeanie, why did you move to Swansea? Please tell us. Are we in for a bit of audience participation? Looking a bit lacklustre, to be absolutely honest.
Pass.
1, 2, 3.
Jeanie, why did you move to Swansea? Please tell us.
Gosh, you're so insistent, aren't you? Well, I'm going to tell you. So when I was living up in Yorkshire, I went up there in 2019 to look after my stepmother, who then died. I didn't kill her, by the way. She was very old. And then I stayed to look after my dad, right? And I hadn't lived up there for many, many years. And I didn't really feel like I belonged. Even though I'm from Yorkshire, I haven't lived there for many years. And I really did feel like not quite right there. Even though I got on okay with people. And my dad and I used to watch A Place in the Sun. I'm sure you all know The Place in the Sun. And you probably, if you have seen it, you'll have noticed that people go into the houses that they're shown and they go, well, Sandra, it hasn't got a second bathroom and it hasn't got a pool, but we wanted to show you it. And they go in and they actually get very emotional because they feel very connected to it. Have you seen that ever? When they just go in and they go, well, Sandra, it's not got a pool. And they go, but I love it. I love it. Now, that is to do with astro-cartography. That is because, as energetic beings, we have imprints that we come into in this lifetime that are running through us like veins, and it has an emotional impact in the very same way that you might get a business that will never work. You know, the businesses that it's been a restaurant and it's been a card shop and it was a pet shop. You know those kind of businesses? And it's because the energy of the place just isn't right. It's linked to psychogeography. So the astro-cartography is basically when we get here on the earth and when we're born, we already have our astro-cartography maps within our birth chart. And when there is a break, I invite you to have a look at this site called Cafe Astrology. Just type it in on your mobiles. And Cafe Astrology, if you type in your birth details, you'll be able to find out what your nodes of the moon are. But I'll carry on this. So here's Pam's book. So and I really, really recommend that if you're going to read any books about astrology and astrocartography and anything to do with your destiny, these are the 2 books. It's like you don't really need to go anywhere else. They tell you everything. Now, Pam, when she saw the astrologer, he did her astrocartography chart. They're very complicated. I'm not here to show you how to do it. It's way too complex for me, but I can show you where to find things out. And this is a starting point, an introduction, and I'm the evidence of why I'm here. Okay? So Pam got her astrocartography chart done. She'd left it, I think, about 19 years old to go and live in Toronto because she just fancied it. And it was only then and there that at the time of her birth, her astrocartography line one of her lines went straight to Toronto. At the time of her birth, she just felt like she wanted to go there. I'm sure all of you here have been to places and you just feel like it's like a spiritual home. Anybody have that at all? Are you still alive?
Yeah.
I can't. Yeah, good. So, astrocartography, it's really reliant on where you were born, what time you were born, because your birth chart, ideally, you need your actual minutes of what time you were born, because the astrology of your ascending sign is about 4 minutes, so it's very narrow. But you can still find out the nodes of your moon because they're set on the day of your birth. So here we go, it's a method of locational astrology. Now a lot of people, and particularly celebrities, a bit like people who use Feng Shui, they actually use astrocartography for the best place for them to live, or the best place for them to have a business, or even, it's like, where would it be really good for me to go as part of my soul's evolution? One of my places is the Isle of Arran. Now, I haven't been there yet. Apparently, I'm going to have a great time if I go, because it's on my soul map. And you'll see this in a minute. So that's what it is. And people pay a lot of money. The guy that I saw on Zoom, because after reading this, I'm one of these that I'm going to go and explore this. It's virtually impossible now to get an actual reading with him. However, you can get free ones online, and there are astro-cartographers who, if you did fancy it, you could find them. So this, yeah, so there we are. It's just the same thing. It's a map of our planetary energies. So very much, I think the short answer is a bit like Machu Picchu or Glastonbury or the Standing Stones or any energetic places where there are spiritual websites. They will have been done, trust me, because they're on astrocartography lines. Okay? Hello, she said. Okay, what's going on there? Sorry, I can't actually. So, sorry guys, I've got something propped up here and I don't actually. So, I'm sure you've all seen one of these before. Anybody not seen them? Does anybody know what this is? Well, for those of you who don't know, it's your astrological wheel. We've all got an astrology wheel, and there's 12 houses, and they all have particular influences. So when you hear Pam Gregory, and I really encourage you to look at her moon forecast, because they also link planetary events to actual events like volcanoes and disruption in politics, nature. I mean, she covers everything. So each of these, well, you can see, I know it's a bit blurry, but they all represent like the house, the home, your friends, your job, your aspirations, and that also is how your astrocartography wheel will look. And I will pass around in the break so you can have a look at mine. And it's actually, I think if you're going to if you really want to evolve and you really want to get where you kind of want to go, really look into astrology far deeper. It's one of the most ancient sciences, and all mathematicians were all trained astrologers back in the day before science got a bit too big for its boots. So they all had to learn how to do astrology, because numbers and maths and astrology and planets are all completely interweaved. Very exciting now. I'm going to show you my astrocartography map. Okay, so that's what it looks like, okay? So as you can see, there are lines. Now, in the middle, at the top, can you see where they all come from at the beginning there? Can you see at the top there?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That is Britain. It's a tiny little bit, but it's Britain. And all those lines, so you haven't got a couple, you've got loads of choices. And some of those lines are going to be detrimental. You know, some of those lines are not going to be good for you, which is why, like Pam said when she said in her book, her friend went to Australia and she had nothing but trouble. Relationships broke up, she lost her job, she had problems with her house. You've all known people where it's one shitty thing after another. And I think it's actually astrocartography that is actually the answer, and that would give you answers. So, as you can see, those are all my lines, okay? Not lines on my face, which is probably about the same, I think, I've got. Okay, this is where it gets interesting, and this is the answer to the question that you asked me after I told you to ask me it, is this one. Okay, so don't forget, I'm going to have my astrocartography map. I know my way around astrology, and then this is presented to me in a video. Now, as Steve said, I was born in Yorkshire. My parents broke up when I was 13. I went to live in Devon, because that's where my mother was from. And I also then went briefly back up to Yorkshire, didn't really fit right, went to live in Birmingham, which I really enjoyed, and then I left Birmingham to come to South Wales in Barry in 2000. Okay. Okay, this is looking a little bit more accurate now, isn't it? So can you see? I'm going to walk over here now and show you. Can you see this one?
Yeah.
What does it say?
Swansea.
Boom. Okay. I was expecting you to be a bit more excited about that, to be fair. So at the time of my birth, 100 years ago, I actually had a line at the time of my birth on, what is it on? The south and north node. See what I'm doing? I'm going straight into it. See what I'm doing? There's actually a plan here. So that's what I found out. Now don't forget, I've been living in South Wales for a long time. But to find out that the place where I'd developed psychically, I'd met some of my best friends in the world, and at my time of my birth, unbeknown to me, my south and north node, my nodes of destiny as it turns out, are actually there at the time of my birth. And if you look as well, you can see they also go through Birmingham and Devon. So I think that's pretty amazing, because we've all got these charts and they do not move. These lines do not move. Our astrology changes, like all the world's astrology, but the actual astro-cartography lines do not change. Yes, the bobbles around the edge. It's a very technical term, that. Here we go. Be nice if I could see, wouldn't it? So the bobbles around the edges of the map. You'll notice, or if you did notice, but around the map there's all these weird little bobbles going to, the lines are going to the bobbles, and the bobbles are astrological symbols and planetary influences, so like Jupiter and Neptune and Venus and the nodes of the moon, and there's all the different things linked to your particular birth chart. So if you're Aquarius like me and like Sagittarius, they'll all be linked. So if I'm an air sign, and Sagittarius I think is ruled by Jupiter, then certain lines are going to have more impact on me. Does that all make sense to you? Are you all kind of following me here, yeah? Okay, so this is the symbols that you will find around your astro-cartography map. And this is why you need an astro-cartographer, or you certainly need to be reading up on it, because it's so complicated. But the good news is the nodes aren't particularly complicated. And once you know the symbols, you can literally trace the line. And once you know that, you can actually interpret the chart, okay? But those are the symbols. So how many Aquarians have we got in tonight? Oh, okay, not surprised. Okay, and how many Arians have we got here tonight? Oh, there we go, fiery person, Aries moon. And what about Virgo? Now that's interesting because...
Not many of them in Swansea.
Oh, there we go. So I'm a born-again Virgo. So my actual node, which we'll come to after, my north node is in Virgo. And I'm as far away from a Virgo, but it just turns out that's the point of the nodes, is that they give you the opportunity to develop traits that you may not have realised, but you would if you read the books and you put a little bit of work. It's all accessible, it's all there online. Anybody in Sagittarius? Any Sagittarians? Okay, I'm rising sign Sagittarius, so we share an element. Don't forget, we always have those conversations where they go, he's in his element. Where do you think that term comes from? He's in his element means that he's feeling good, he's doing, or she's doing, or they're doing, or it's doing their very best. Because they're in their element, they're doing what they're passionate about, okay? So that's where in its element comes from. And then, so we've got a full moon, I believe, in Leo. Any Leos here? Any Leos? Leos, where are you? No Leos? Well, there's a Leo full moon on Sunday, and that's where you probably know we get the term lunatic, because it agitates us, it excites us, or it can make us a bit mental, you know. And it can make us very emotional, because the moon is the mother, or it's known as the feminine. So it can really, you know, can play havoc, particularly with people who have accidents, or... So the full moon, but the new moon is about new opportunities and embracing good stuff. And we're in some very weird times, as you all know. So, yeah, we're also being hit by, is it K-class flare? Sun flares, K-class? Yeah. Okay. This is purely for decorative purposes, by the way. This next one. So these are the symbols. These are like little earphones. So it's the south and north node of the moon. Now, the south node is where we've already been, okay? It's like things that we came in with in, maybe, if you believe in that, a past life. And it's also traits that you've come in with, you've got quite good at them, you might fall back on them, okay? So, you know, it's a bit like, well, I'm quite good at painting and decorating, and you just keep in that job. And this is why we get people who also use astrology. Trust me, everyone in power right now, they're using astrology. They're using astro-cartography. They're using particular lines on the grid of this planet. And there's a fascinating story in one of Pam's books where there's a scientist, and he was actually quite anti-astrology, but he made some studies, and I've forgotten his first name, it's Garculin, and he did a lot of studying to do with people and their astrology charts, and inevitably that's why you get different star signs. That's where they come from. Every culture in the world has astrology, every single culture. It has its own versions, like, you know, Vedic and Chinese, but they all have astrology because, you know, I mean, how did the 3 wise men get to where they were going? They used the stars. How do the sailors get across the world? They use the stars. Everything is to do with the stars and the planets and the moon and the sun. So, and they're all on grids. Why do you think maps are all longitude and latitude? And JFK, he was born with this particular line called the Garculin line, and it was on the planet Pluto. And Pluto, one of the influences, and a strong influence of Pluto, is to do with death. It doesn't always necessarily mean physical death, but it's certainly one of the aspects of Pluto. And we all know that when you're a president, you don't organise your itinerary. It's organised for you by people who really care about you and want you to do well. And they made sure that JFK was in Dallas, and at the time of his birth, he had this very particular and unique line in his astro-cartography chart on the planet of death to Dallas in 1963. So the people, you know, the higher-ups, or whatever you want to call them, they are using astrology and astro-cartography to make sure certain things happen on certain days in a certain location. Does that make sense to you? Another one, you're going to love this, Margaret Thatcher also had a very unique sign, exactly the same. At the time of her birth, she had very particular astro-cartography lines going straight to the Falkland Islands on Mars, which is the planet of war. Both Bushes, senior and junior, both had astro-cartography lines that actually went to Afghanistan and Iran. It is all there. These are blueprints. And if you know about these things, and isn't it funny that anything that they ridicule, you know, the baddies, anything that they ridicule is usually because they don't want you knowing about it, and so they make you feel stupid for being interested in it. All the while they are literally plotting. And they were, again, I've forgotten the guy's name, but it's in the book. And it's called The Red Planet and the White House. And it was all to do with the astrology and astrocartography and psychogeography of the presidents linked to their astrology signs. All royals use astrology, in the same way as we know that the police use psychic and mediums when a child's gone missing in particular. So astrology, I can't encourage you enough, particularly in these times, because this is a fail-safe method. This isn't some kind of scientist or expert telling you this. This is integral to our very reality. I know, do you know what I mean? So this is a bit like the Earth. This is an interpretation of the nodes of the moon. they probably don't look like this, but this is kind of giving you an idea of what they are. They're mathematical coordinates at the time of your birth. Now, you can't see them, but like most cool things, you don't have to see it to know that it isn't there. It's there, rather. So we've all got the nodes, and that's just an interpretation. It's trying to make you understand what they're about. And actually, every country, and again, in the book, I mean, I'm not getting any money for this. I'm plugging Pam away like mad, but hopefully she'll get to, hear about it and invite me around for tea and give me my free chart reading. So, the nodes of the moon are set at your time of birth, and if you, as I say, in the break, if you want to, if you go into Cafe Astrology, or even if you just type in how do I find out the nodes of the moon, you can just type in your birth details and you will find them. Now, you know they look like little headphones, so that means that you can then find out what your south and north node mean. Okay. I don't know when that's happening. Sorry, I can't see. Oh, God. Okay. So you can read that. They're celestial points. And that they reveal your purpose in this lifetime. Now, once you know if you've got your full birth chart, when you've got the time of birth, you've got your sun sign, which is what we all know, which is for the Sagittarians, the Virgos. Then you've got your moon sign, that's your emotional component. Your rising sign is how people imagine you to be if they don't know you very well. So I'm Sagittarius. And then, you'll find out more of the intricacies, like your mid-heaven, that's when literally in the middle of heaven, what time you were born. So you get all these it's so complex, but the nodes are really quite easy because they give you a shortcut to what you might be able to do if you have this information. So this is an example, like Chinese astrology with, like the year of the rat and the year of the rabbit and the year of the penguin, just made that up. So this actually is how they're in banks of about 18 months. So if you got a birthday within 18 months, you would share the same nodes. And it's interesting because often your own age group and your friends will have the same nodes. Now, you're going to be very different people, but that's when the houses come in. I showed you the circle with all the different houses. You also get the nodes are also in houses, and the houses also have influences. And it's actually all there. You don't even have to, you just have to read it. That's all you have to do. And I think it should spark in you some remembrance, or maybe potentially another lifetime. So, I'm really not doing this, am I? There we are. I'm just going to, where's that gone to? Oh, okay. Don't know where that's, that's strange. Okay. There we go. So, I've deliberately chose this very high-res graphic because last year, it was a horrific year. My dad died, I was living in Yorkshire, but I had my astro-cartography chart from the year before, and the guy who did it, Marcus Mason, he said to me, remind me where you are again, and he was down in Cornwall. And I told him, I said, I'm in Stanley near Wakefield. And he said, oh, okay. And because he's looking at it mathematically, and he's looking at the influences. And he said to me, you don't really feel at home there, do you? Would that be right, that you don't feel quite right? And I went, yeah, I don't. I can get on with people, but I just don't feel energetically right. And, so it was, a horrific year. But after reading the book and finding out about astro-cartography, and more to the point, finding out that I had my nodal line going straight to Swansea, it was always my intention to come back here. And because I lived in Barry and Cardiff, and because I got such good friends, and because I know what it means to have your south and north node in Swansea, it was a no-brainer for me. Okay? So, obviously, my good friends, a few of them are here tonight, they knew all about this, and they knew my intention to come to Swansea. So I got back here, I got in touch with Emily, I pitched this talk because honestly, I can't say how much this means to me to be here tonight, mainly because I feel like I kind of made it home. That's what it feels like to me. It's like, finally, I got my shit together, I followed the signs, I had all these like breadcrumbs that go right back, don't forget, to 2008, and in fact, really to 2000 when I came here, because I was living in Birmingham before this. So I get an Airbnb up Sketty Road, just because I need to land somewhere. It was a nightmare. So I land here, I'm exhausted, I'm emotional, and I go there and I meet up with Steve and Mark here tonight, and we're all like, oh, because there was times when I was thinking I'm never going to get back. And I was looking for somewhere to live, and I stayed in an Airbnb, then I had to have my dog put down. You can imagine, just horrendous. And I'd decided that I was going to, I'd stayed at another Airbnb in, Uplands Crescent? Richmond Terrace. So Uplands Crescent, Richmond Terrace. I decided that I was going to go to this other Airbnb, and it was really nice, and I thought, yeah, I think I wouldn't mind staying there. Stayed there, dog put down, went back to Cardiff, and I saw a house that I fell in love with. And as soon as I saw it, I thought, that's my house. That is my house. Anybody ever had that feeling where you just know that this is a job, this is the person? Yeah? Yeah. You just, oh, thank you, at the back. Bless you. So nice that you're alive. So I saw this house, and I didn't expect it, arranged to see it, my good friends came with me, and as soon as we went in, it was like, this is my house. It's like, it's just, and I hadn't even looked anywhere, and I said, I put an offer in, didn't I, Steve and Mark were there, and our other friend Rick, and I said, this is it. And so I put an offer in, and then, that horrible thing where you have to wait for nearly a week before it's accepted. But part of my brain was going, it's got to be mine. It's got to be mine. So in the meanwhile, I then got in touch with the Airbnb guy, and I'd made an arrangement that I could stay there a little bit longer. So I got kind of like, better rates, and I lived in Richmond Terrace. Now, I didn't know logistically where I was in Swansea, because I didn't know that bit. But it was actually, literally, 5 minutes away from Cundonkin Park. Okay? Remember that when you were right at the beginning? So when Steve gave me that message back in 2010, which I thought was a joke because it sounded so funny to me, because I'm not from round here, it was Cundonkin Park. And so we were like, whoa, that's crazy. And then you all know Penny Sartori? Do you know Penny Sartori wrote the book of the Wisdom of Near-Death Experiences? Penny and I have got coincidences, again, going back 2014. And I won't bore you with them, maybe I will, but not right now. So Penny and I have got coincidences, again, really amazing coincidences going back. So once I kind of like settled, and again I was still grieving heavily for my dog, I thought, I'm going to get in touch with Penny, let her know that I'm down here, and I'm gonna be living here, and I bought a house. Well, not bought, but I'm technically buying a house. So I got in touch with Penny, and she was like, "Oh, you're around the corner from me," because Penny lives in the Uplands. And I said, "Yeah, I'm buying. I fell in love with this house. I'm buying this house." And she said, "Oh, where is it, Jeanie?" And I said, "Oh, Windmill Terrace in St Thomas." And she went, "Oh my God!" She said, "It's not Andrea Little's place, is it?" And I said, "Yeah, it is." She said, "Andrea's one of my best friends." I know. So we're like, whoa, that's crazy. Now, I hadn't seen Penny because I'd been away for a while, and we were both a bit blown away. Anyway, I arranged to meet Penny the next day, and when I saw Penny the next day, she said, "Jeanie," she said, "you'll never believe it." She said, "When you were on the phone to me yesterday, Andrea was ringing at the same time as you were talking to me. She'd left a message. And then I got to meet Andrea, and obviously, you know, she'd found out who I was. And when I got in, it was funny, Andrea said to me, "Where are you from?" I said, "I'm from Leeds." I said, "Where are you from?" And she went, "Ossett." She was from Yorkshire. So that was a bit trippy. Then she came to see me in my flat in the Uplands, and as soon as she walked in, the settee that was in the flat, you know, the rented flat, she had one identical, and she said, "That's my settee." It was almost like, why have you got my settee? Because she'd had a flat, and it was a cream leather sofa. So we've had all these really weird little coincidences. So all of these things, it almost like, if you want to look at it like that, and I do, because that's why I'm here, is that these are all like, you know, what Carl Jung would say, they're meaningful coincidences. But I don't think coincidences are, again, what we've been led to believe. They are basically, like I said before, they are signposts. If you and good and bad, they're not all wonderful. So, you know, that's why I'm technically here tonight to tell you about the nodes of the moon. For some reason, I seem to have lost a load of slides, but it doesn't matter, because God knows I can talk about them. So then, I'm talking to Mark, and there's a pub in St Thomas around the corner, and so I said, "Oh, there's a pub around the corner, that will be my local," because I got really into Noah's Yard, you know, Noah's Yard in the Uplands. It's one of my favourite bars in the world, actually, and I spent a lot of time there, longer than I should, really. And so the pub, that's going to be my local, and Mark knew about my history. He went, "Jeanie, that's the ship." Can we remember the far back at the beginning of the talk? When Steve said, "Thank you." Get out of town. There we are, in real time. In real time. Bless you. So there you go. So, of course, when Steve gave me that message, I could take the ship from Exeter, but the ship is now technically my local pub. And Steve had this information. Now, don't forget, there was a lot of years in between. So, you know, you think about that. And when I was up in Yorkshire, what time are we here now? Sorry. Oh. What time is it? Okay, I'll do this a little bit. So when I was up in Yorkshire, I spoke at my stepmother's funeral because my dad obviously couldn't, and at that point I was quite naive. I thought that I had to write all the eulogy because I didn't, and I obviously wanted to speak on behalf of my dad, and so I did, and I sent the celebrant, and he said, "Have you ever thought about being a celebrant?" And I went, "Well, no, not really." And he said, "Well, you know, you should do this. I think you'd be really good at it." And I wasn't working properly because I'd just relocated back to Yorkshire. And I took a training course up in Yorkshire. And I did a couple, and it was very new to me, but, you know, I'm a bit of a, you know, I can talk kind of thing, and I can write. And it was a lovely job for me because, you know, I like to help and support people. And then lockdown came. So that kind of put the mockers on that. But then when I came back to Swansea, or came to live in Swansea, that's when I started, I basically went round local funeral homes and just said, "Look, I'm here and this is what I do." And I've been very fortunate enough to do a few funerals since I've been here. And I can't tell you how incredible it feels to be here, because I've had nothing really but lovely things happen to me. And last week I did 2 funerals, one on Tuesday, moved on Wednesday into my new home, and then did a funeral on Thursday, and I'm doing one tomorrow, which is my birthday. And when Emlyn said, you know, it's the 1st of February, I thought, of course it is. Because how lovely, it's the first Wednesday of the month, but my birthday just happens to be tomorrow, and I'm 192. Yes, I know. I'm probably older than that. We're all older than that. We just come round in this little spacesuit. So I'm going to talk a little bit more after the break, just to kind of wind things up to do with what the nodes can do for us, By the way, you don't you don't have to go living on your south and north node to have a lovely life. It's just that the way, because my life has been so coincidental, it just makes sense to me at this age with what I know, and I've got so many amazing coincidences linked particularly to Swansea, going back years, and both Steve and Mark and a lot of our friends, we have got this almost like web of coincidences that go back to Birmingham, some of them back to Devon. It's almost like, I really do feel, everyone here today, that we're all kind of drawing closer together with the people that we need to be with in these very chaotic, transformational, evolutionary times. So if you want to check out on your phones, Cafe Astrology, you might want to type in your birth details, and then we'll do some examples of what the nodes mean. Because I've got North Node in Virgo, South Node in Pisces, and then what house that means. And if with Steve's permission, I'll read just a few lines of the house that his nodes are in. And I'm happy to do other people's nodes. I should be a node reader, shouldn't I, really? I might add that, I might do that as well, because I don't think I've got enough to do, really. So thank you. So did any of you manage to look at the Cafe Astrology? Did you find your nodes? Yeah? No. Oh, can I just have a bit more light? Because I need to, just a little bit, Emily, I don't need all of them, but that's great, thank you. So I'm going to just read it because it's just easier, and then I'm going to give you examples, and hopefully somebody might share, but I will just give out the kind of cherry picking of the nodal axis. So like I told you, the South Node is very much about where we've been, maybe brought through our past lives, if you believe that, and if you don't, then clearly you're not very evolved. So, hello. So the reason that the South Node represents the accumulated skills, talents and abilities which have been developed over many lifetimes and which we each bring into this life, it is a point by sign and house in our birth chart of familiarity, ease, and something we can easily fall back on as a skill or behaviour pattern. It represents our instinctive comfort zone, the pull of the past. But if we operate just from our South Node, our lives may remain very small. The North Node is where we need to head towards. It is where we are supposed to develop new skills, abilities and talents that so far have been underdeveloped. This can feel challenging as it's unfamiliar territory, but the North Node brings with it a sense of purpose in this life and rich fulfillment. It is a direction for your soul growth. It is evolutionary. And the more we can focus on the effects on our North Node, the more we can be richly rewarded in our efforts. And all the lifetimes of experience represented by the South Node will then, and signed by house, will give us a strong foundation. So again, I stand here before you as evidence of that. I'm 63 years old tomorrow. I've fannied around a lot. I mean, I've just really wasted a lot of time. Having said that, I have always done things that I've been interested in. My move to Windmill Terrace is my 40th move. And yet in my birth chart, it actually said, with this kind of babak, this is just a shortcut, you may move around a lot. I'm like, no shit. So it's one of those things where I'm a great example because I have moved around a lot. I've moved around a lot in places I've lived. And since I've been here, as I told you, I still intend to do, maybe a bit of comedy and talks, but being a funeral celebrant, I've been able to use all of my accumulated skills, all of them. And I think it's only going to get better because obviously I know about why I'm here. And it's a very deliberate move and a very beautiful one as well. So I'm now going to pick out my good friend Steve Balsamer, singer, songwriter, performer, poet, philosophical thinker, synchronistic person who... so if you didn't know that, because I didn't when I met him in the tarot class, I had no idea just how amazing he was, as not just as an artist, but just as a thinker. psychic, tarot reader, help me move, that's a good friend, and Mark as well. They have carted my stuff backwards and forwards from Barry and Cardiff. So I'm going to read. This is Steve's node. I don't know if any of you share the North node in Aquarius and the South node in Leo. I'm not going to read all of it because we'd literally be here all day, but I do want to read you this with the information that I've just told you. Don't forget, performed on the West End stage, has written songs for Meatloaf, #1 hits in Australia for other people. This is the thing with songwriters, you don't always realise how much they do because it's for other artists. In the past, you may have experienced a strong sense of individuality and creativity, and you will still benefit from this in this life. You will still carry a presence and a confidence, as in the past you are likely to have been centre stage in some capacity. Well, yeah, West End stage is Jesus, can't get more centre stage than that. And operating within mainstream society, the South Node in Leo brings with it some wonderful, warm, radiant, generous, loving heart energy. But at the same time, it can be quite ego-focused, needed if you're a performer. As you may have achieved admiration in the past for all you've achieved, the North Node in Aquarius demands that you put your personal concerns and ego to one side this time round. So you're bringing with you all the attributes, but you're also carrying it forward because, as you know, we're all going into the age of Aquarius. You all know that, don't you? I mean, one of my favourite songs is The Dawning of the Age of Aquarius. And that's what we're going into. So this is why we all need to kind of really get down with our North Node, which is the title of my concept album, which will be released in the astral realms later this year. Okay, so I just also wanted to mention, because I forgot earlier, I was speaking to this group of people here, that also at the time of my birth, I had astro-cartography going directly to Peru at the time of my birth. Now, I never imagined I'd go to Peru, but I went there in 2013, and a line going straight to La Paz in Bolivia and straight to Peru. So that's how incredible it is. Now, you can explore those lines, and I really encourage you to do just that. Have a look at your North Node, because it's not about where you're living, it's where this is and where you want to dedicate your evolution going forward. You know what you can do, but often as we get older, we stop, we go, some people go, oh, well, I don't do that anymore, I don't exercise anymore, I did that when I played football. It's like, no, you cannot stop. We have to keep going forward, because if we all did have this information at birth, and this was taught in schools, then we wouldn't be in the shit that we're in. So that's what I'm thinking about. And Steve's asked me to just mention as well that when I was living in Barry, I've had such cool times, really cool times in South Wales. When I lived in Barry, I lived in a place called Salisbury Road. It came off one of the main roads and went down towards Porthcurry Park. So you started on one road, and I was coming back. So I wasn't in the I'm looking out for UFOs. I'd just come back from a pedicure. And I was driving down the road, it was about 10:30 at night, and I saw, because the long terrace streets, so imagine I'm here in the car, and down at the back with a lady with the red hair and a jumper, imagine that I'm in a car, and I saw these lights, and I first of all, when your brain's thinking, trying to make sense of what it might be, and I thought it was an aeroplane. I was thinking, it can't be an aeroplane, it's way too low, and the lights are too bright, and it wouldn't be coming down Salisbury Road. And then it literally came down the street in milliseconds, and it stopped, and it was just above the rooftops, and it was nearly as wide as the street. Massive lights. I couldn't see the shape of the craft because of the lights. And then literally seconds later, another one. I mean, you know how fast they go. And they sort of banked, and they were like higher than the roof. And I was in my car, looked in my rearview mirror to see if anybody else was witnessing this, stopped my car, and they just hovered silently, virtually the width of a terrace street, and stayed there. And then you think, oh my God, I need to take a picture. And then of course I started to try and of course, what did they do then? Which is what they do. and it just went just like. So the North Node and the South Node. Anybody got their nodes that they found out? Because I will read to you about, if you can tell me what nodes you've got.
North Node in Cancer.
North Node in Cancer. Okay. Bear with me. North Node in Cancer, South Node in Capricorn. Is that what you've got? I'm not going to read it all, but I'll just read you, because obviously you can get it online, but this is from Pam's book. In the past, you worked very hard and built your status and reputation, and these were important to you. Capricorn is a very conventional energy, so it brings with it pride, respectability, a sense of authority, and a strong work ethic. Always a sense of duty, tradition, conservatism, and being conscientious, and the ability to work within a hierarchy as there is a respect for authority. That's your South Node. Does any of that make any sense to you? Yeah? Capricorn South Node brings with it a sense of ambition, being methodical and steadily working your way up to the top. So this is South Node, this is what you've been accumulating. Perhaps in a past life you had to take responsibility for the family, as Capricorn is linked to the father archetype. And financial security for your family and yourself is very important. Making any sense there? Now I'm going to go into that. So that's the South Node. And again, you often bring that with you. The North Node in Cancer, the focus shifts to the emotional and family realm. It is no longer so much looking after the financial needs of the family, but rather the emotional needs. There may be a hankering to be out in the world and achieving, but if you do seek authority and position, you may find that life doesn't flow that well. The priority is to nurture family and protect them. Making any... Does this ring true? I'm not going to go into it because, you might want to kind of... But it's very profound. Now, mine actually, my North Node is in Virgo. I'm not a Virgo kind of person. I don't know if I've got the Virgo anymore. I have to work hard to be organised and methodical, but I'm actually better if I have lists and tick things off. And it's all to do about service as well, which of course is a funeral celebrant. So it's almost like I've learned a lot of stuff, but now the North Node, because my South and North Node are here. So it's very much about you now actually kind of being a bit more mature. Don't get me wrong, that's not going to change me being the silly little thing that I am. But it means that you can actually gain more knowledge for your higher self and your authentic self if you use these as guides. So does anybody have any questions? Where did you get my red tights? Nice question. I got them in Leeds Market, and I found them because because I've been unpacking my clothes. I thought, oh wow, I forgot I got them.
You're showing your age now.
I am. Red tights, come on. So anybody got any questions about anything? I mean, oh sorry, but yes, thank you.
What if you don't know your date, time of birth?
You don't need your time of birth for the nodes. No, because it's where the moon was. So you should be all right with just your date of birth. And actually on the Cafe Astrology, there's loads of them. And if you just type in North Node calculator, because you'll automatically get your South and North Node. But it's the house as well. I think that's where it might be more difficult, because the houses also give you more information. So,
how specific do you need to be with the location of your birth?
Well, I think I would certainly think in the district of you wouldn't need to know your postcode. So if you were born in Yorkshire, you would be still, like I was born in Leeds. Can you share with me why you...
The thing is that I was born in Jamaica, and the hospital I was born in no longer exists.
Ah, no, you'd be fine.
If I went back to the ward that I was in, I'd be in someone's attic.
Yeah.
But the person who was born 3 minutes after me in the same ward moved into the house next door to mine, which would have been the same bed next to me some years after he was we were born in the same street in Rebane, which is a totally different town.
Yeah.
So we ended up, once again, living side by side.
There is so much of this goes on. I'm sure, like the gentleman earlier, I'm sure we are all weaved together. And I would imagine that that's going to happen more. But you wouldn't need, as long as you know the city that you were born in. Because each city and every country has got its own astrology and astro-cartography.
Sorry,
Yeah?
the lines that were on the map,
Yes.
they're all different colours. Do they represent different things for different colours then?
I think the colours are not so much, they're not so much important. I think they just use them to differentiate. Because like one line, like Venus, obviously is linked to love and relationships. So I think they just do it just so it's easier to differentiate. But the colours don't mean anything. But the symbols, and again, that's why you really I would encourage you to look at your birth chart and find out, because when Pam Gregory or any astrologer tells you about what houses things are, if you're in the house of family, then that might mean something different to you than it would for me, because the wheel is very different for everyone. Because it is, as you see, it's incredibly complex. But the nose of the moon, those are the shortcut, I would say, to really getting a handle on what you're like as a person, or your potential, which is what it is. And I'm evidence of that. You know, I mean, I've always done okay, and I've always worked, and but it's like, well, Steve and Mark will tell you, it's like, since I've been here, it's just gone off the scale to what has happened to me since it's almost like, oh, she's ready now, in your own time.
Are you able to do mine without me looking? Because the chart itself, I'm looking at it, I got quite stuck where it said female, male and they. So that was threw me off a bit, I was thinking...
What are you identifying as at the moment?
Well, I'm identifying as a woman. I got the parts about the period,
I think, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I was going to say something about a vagina then, but I decided not to.
No,
I don't want to upset people.
That, can't they? But then it asks me about what topics are you thinking about lately? And what I'm thinking about lately is not even listed. So
Oh, I don't know what chart that is.
It's on the site, I'm looking at it.
Topics.
It asks me what topics have you been thinking recently? Financial issues, career, love, health, family life, friendships. None of them. I'm thinking about the corruption.
Well, I don't know what... If it's Cafe Astrology, I haven't seen that. I've just gone into the South Node and North Node calculator.
Astro-cartography.com.
No, it's Cafe Astrology, not Astro Cafe.
Right.
Cafe Astrology.
There we are, we've learned something new.
You see? You see what happens? So I'm just going to quickly... I've got little highlights because, again... but this is... So my North Node is in Virgo. Got to get real, got to be a little bit more... But it's in the 9th house. So the North Node is in the 9th house, which means my South Node is in the 3rd, because they're always opposite, like the nodes themselves. Now, this isn't me saying this. Right? I didn't write this, okay? I could, but I didn't. Your mind is sharp and maybe witty. You're likely to have acute powers of observation and be a very social animal, always involved in people's lives. Now, that's generic, but it's actually is accurate with me. You need to become, don't forget you're going into the North Node, you need to become a natural philosopher visionary with strong intuition and almost an ability to see into the future, always underpinned by meaning that becomes your own personal wisdom. There will be a natural writing talent here and speaking talent. Now, I was saying to Johnny earlier, and Johnny and I have known each other on and off for many years, via comedy actually, isn't it, Johnny? Is that when you look at your chart and the nodes, and particularly if you get a chart, it's quite freaky because you're thinking, how can this be written down about me? And, I have nothing to do with it. It's already there. So it's a bit like, like in Westworld, where you kind of wake up, and who knows, we could be in a simulation, that you wake up and you realise that this is a character. We are all archetypes. But what we do need to do is we can take back our power, I think, by using these are a bit really like, this is ammunition, spiritual ammunition, that's a better word, spiritual ammunition, if you know your south and north node. And again, the astro-cartography, what I would suggest is, it might be just as simple as you just might want to go somewhere really cool on holiday. What's the best place? Where do you want to... Like if you want to go on a spiritual journey, I went to South America because of a load of coincidences. I didn't know at the time it was an astro-cartography thing. Any more questions? Steve?
Is Pluto still a planet then?
Pluto still a planet. As far as I know. I mean, I know they keep changing things, don't they? Like
downgraded it now, haven't they?
But again, I think it's not so much what they're called, it's what they represent historically and the influence they have, because they all, everything influences. We're all little planets, we're all smashed from stars, aren't we? We're just all made of literally stardust. So I think, we have to be mindful that we are parts of the universe. And the people who are in power who use all of these things, these tools, we shouldn't really be letting them get away with it, should we?
No,
we should be.
absolutely not.
And the thing is, we are very, very powerful.
But we need to stand in it, you see. That's the difference, isn't it? People are not standing in the power.
Yeah, but you can't make, I've got a short answer for this. The reason why there's so much trouble in our lives and in the world is that people don't do what we want them to. That's it. Right, well, any more questions? Anybody want me to...
The lines on the map, how
Yeah.
have they decided, do you mean like if I put my roots in, how have they decided where they go?
It's just a bit like, it's like, well, they're already there. It's a bit like the ley lines. It's like they're energetic lines, and it's a bit like a grid on a map. This is an astrological system that's been in use for years. So it's just generated. So a bit like a map would be. It's to do with your longitude and latitude and your time of birth, and then it just goes out. I mean, some people would be very similar. And you might never go to... He said to me, the guy, Marcus Mason, he said, have you ever wanted to go to India? And I said... I like some of it, some of it looks lovely, like, the Marigold Hotel. That looks nice. Love a curry. Lived in Birmingham, love all that. But I don't like it's too frenetic for me. It's too chaotic. I mean, I love the colour. I think out in the country. And he said, well, I'm telling you that. He said, because that is not a good place for you. He says you could go. He said, but you might like Pam. That, in the book, she gives great examples of where things have gone badly wrong because they weren't astrologically with all the symbols and their planets. It wasn't a good place for them. It's the same with a job. You usually know when things are not good. You just know, don't you? Stephen?
I think you said earlier on as well, people, the elites, if you like, or people who are controlling the system, they all, because it's only, I'm a recent convert to astrology. I always thought it was a bit woo-woo for me, and I just was like, but when you really look into it, people who pull in the strings, they all use it.
All of them, every single one of them.
And magic and ritual magic and all the rest of it. But it's
well, Mark as well and Steve, they all use it, and Mark in particular, he's spoken here. It's like if you look from above at all the buildings, which we probably... that's another time, but, like Tartaria and the mud floods and the buildings where they're very... I mean, even as a kid, I was like, why are their doors so big? We don't need doors that big. There's been other beings here, and a lot has been hidden. Our history is nonsense.
Manipulated.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's going to be very exciting, I think. And like Steve said, he's like, Steve knows a lot about psychogeography, energy, you go in, I'm sure, you go into places, you just know when something's off. In the same way as, like, since I've been here, I was saying to the group down here, and the lady with the yellow puffer jacket, is that since I've been here, I physically feel lighter. I just feel different energetically. Now, when I was in Yorkshire, I was okay. But when you've lived somewhere and then you come back, even different to Barry and Cardiff, I feel like I'm walking on a different earth, because energetically I'm in a really good place for my future destiny.
So are you like saying you're at home?
Yeah. And it's been said to me, hasn't it, Steve? Somebody said they recognised me from a previous life. You know, and I'd never met them before.
Yeah, it's okay. Well, the lines coming from where you're born.
Yeah.
Those lines, and I noticed they were red and blue. And to me, that might represent Taurus for you.
Yeah, yeah.
Red shift, blue shift. And the lighter lines is the plane of inertia. So I think those lines are degrees based on the star signs and the celestial movements.
Yeah, that's exactly.
Because that's how the lead work.
Yeah.
They shift and move to the energy of the stars and to themselves. It's all really intricate.
Very much so.
So I think that's redshift, blue shift, and within redshift, blue shift, all the star signs are in there. It's just blue on the top, because that's your crown chakra.
Yeah.
And it's red at the bottom, so all the star signs at the bottom. It's like Masonic orders.
Yeah, yeah.
The different names. Holy Royal Arch will be at the top of blue shift, and it'll just, and the different degrees will come down to that. And members will all take identifications as different degrees. So one might be an 18 degree or 20 degree, and it'll all be in a different part of that astrological movement. So I think those lines are definitely...
Well, when you look at them, because you know the Torah Ufo, they all...
It will be, yeah, it will be on there.
Because we are, that's the thing, you know, I think exactly that, Mark, yeah, absolutely. I just wanted to bring in, which is really from Mark and Steve, but we were talking about Bigfoot. It's one of our things that we like to talk about, Bigfoot, and so we were having a discussion, and there's a lot of that, and I suspect they'll be coming out as well. I hope to meet one day. Might even cop off with it.
I have come across that the last couple of weeks, where there's lots of people saying it's like they're having sightings, and you're like, wow, that's crazy. Because of what we taught, because it's only in one area, and then you think, why are they saying that when they're in like Scotland?
Yeah, they're everywhere. They're in all over the world, and they've always been seen from every culture again.
Even Penta.
Yes. So we've been talking about them, and I went down into Swansea, so when I was living in Richmond Terrace, and I thought, oh, you know what, I'm going to treat myself to the 14 Times, because I used to get it when I was younger, and I thought, oh, is it monthly? I don't know, it never used to be monthly, I don't think. But anyway, I thought, you know what, I'm going to just treat myself, because I was going into WH Smith's, so I thought, I'm definitely going to. So we're literally, the day before, we've been talking about it, and this was on the front cover.
Is it?
Bigfoot. Now, I didn't know that it was going to be Bigfoot, but because of our lives are so quick, I said, of course it's Bigfoot. Why wouldn't it be Bigfoot? Of course it would be. But here's the really thing. So, it's really cool. It's very funny. And then at the back of it, I know that you can't see this, but at the back of it, there's a photograph of, it looks like a spaceship, but it's not. You can see it. It's just like a weather... Well, it looks like a weather thing, but there's a photograph. And, so you look at it because it's a photograph. And this was... I lived up in Yorkshire, as I told you, in Stanley. Bought this in Swansea. Haven't bought this for years. I took this picture of a rainbow yesterday evening from the Thatched House pub in Stanley, Wakefield, Yorkshire. That was my pub for 3.5 years. That was 5 minutes from where I used to live. My stepmother and my dad met there because they were both taking driving lessons. Got to get some more driving lessons. And they met there and they fell in love. And that's where my stepmother and my father both had their wake. And I was there. Well, Stephen Ragg again. I was up there all the time. Of all the bloody pubs. And I knew the guy in the pub who took the photograph. So there's something very wacky going on. And I just look forward to being in Swansea and getting to know all of you, and I hope to, share Anne with my friends who, trust me, have led even more interesting lives than me in regard to coincidences. And I was saying actually, weren't we, Emily, that maybe we should have a coincidence night, Steve was saying, because I bet you we all crisscross. And there's actually a thing, isn't there, Steve? The Coincidence Project, it's a new thing that's going to be starting next month. It's global. It's a guy who wrote a book about coincidences.
It's mathematically impossible.
Well, you see, this is the thing. Nothing's impossible. In the quantum world, there's no such thing as impossible. Everything is possible.
No, what I'm saying is, it's mathematically impossible, and if you look at the mathematicians, they will say coincidence. It's not a coincidence, it happens for a reason.
Yeah, exactly. And the guy who's running the Coincidence Project is a scientist, but he kept having them, so he's made it kind of more acceptable.
The word coincidence is actually coincidence.
Yeah.
Meaning two events coinciding at the same time.
Yeah.
But like walking under a ladder or whatever, they made us afraid of it. So
Yeah.
so it's like changing it to coincidence.
Yeah, exactly. And I forgot what it's called now, and I've got the bloody book. But I think it's called Meaningful Coincidences. But he talks about it from every angle, about the statistics that, like we know with a monkey, that they could paint a Rembrandt if there was enough time. And I need that monkey as a pet. So
Can you read mine then? Because I don't quite understand it. It says 51%, North 37.
yeah, it's not so much to do with the degrees on the astro-cartography map. You just want to know what the signs are. So you're looking to what is it in, like mine's in Virgo, North Node, South Node Pisces. You're looking for 2 coordinates for the nodes. I'll come and see you after. I'll see you after class, okay?
Oh, thank you.
I'll see you after class. I might have to spank you. That's an old school reference.
Did she say she's going to spank me?
I said, I didn't. I think you misheard me. I would never say that. That would be inappropriate. For goodness sake, what kind of a woman do you think I am?
You're that name.
Can I ask a question?
Yes,
So you've
possible.
got a funeral service tomorrow?
Sorry?
You said you got a service tomorrow?
Yeah, I'm doing a service tomorrow at 1 o'clock.
We can't sound that?
Yes. Ken Morris. Of course, Evelyn.
Yeah, he was a very good friend of mine. I'm going to the funeral.
So?
And we share birthdays.
Oh, fuck. Sorry. I didn't mean to say fuck, I meant to say flip. No, I didn't.
I had a feeling, when you said you were going to service tomorrow, I wonder.
Honestly, it's not appropriate for me to talk about funerals because it's private, but I'll see you at the funeral.
Yeah.
Boom. I'll give you a shout out, Emily. I'm kidding, I wouldn't do
I've known him
that.
since 1983.
Yeah, because he restored the Swansea train, the Mumbles train, didn't he?
So did I, yeah, I was on there with him.
Bloody hell. That's...
Well, the Swansea Railway, yeah.
Yeah.
And I worked in the museum when he was...
That's it, because he was an attendant in the museum, wasn't he?
Mike knew him as well.
Well. Ooh-wee. Anyway, I think I'm done, don't you, really? So thank you so much for being so patient and kind and letting me stand up here in my red tights that I found this afternoon in a box that I didn't even know I had. And I look forward to hearing about, your other coincidence, and I definitely think we should do something about that. And I'll tell you, Steve should write a book about this. He's just off the scale, isn't it, Steve? So that is crazy. So I don't know if you heard that. I'm doing a funeral that Emmeline's attending tomorrow.
Oh, what a coincidence.
What a coincidence! I think it's to do with my nodes, actually. And on that note, thank you so much. Thank you.